Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have the Dealer Solutions and Design panel. And Ted, exciting conversations about where fixed ops and retention strategies align.
Sarah, it's an exciting time to be in our industry. We want to welcome back Eli Crawford, who is the Senior Vice President at Dealer Solutions and Design, and welcome Paul Agosti, the Director at Safeguard Products. Eli and Paul, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, thank you and Sarah for having us. I'm excited to be here. I know Eli's been here before, but this is a great first event I've watched, but now it's great to participate.
Yeah,
And we
always a
saw
pleasure.
you, and we had a chance, Eli and Paul, to meet both of you in person at the NADA show back in February, I believe it was, back in Las Vegas. So, congratulations to you because, as we said in the green room, this space is exciting and you folks are really setting the trend. So, Eli, if it's okay, I want to come to you and talk a little bit about dealer challenges. Here we are in the middle of the second quarter, and ask you a little bit about what themes are you hearing the most from dealers about fixed operations priorities and even facilities constraints, because that's really your sweet spot where you folks deal.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're already in the second quarter. I feel like it was Christmas last week. Uh, but that's the industry we're in. So, the biggest thing right now is still just space constraints. OEs coming out with these different standards and requirements based on safety issues and safety concerns. Calibrations are a big part of what we're dealing with right now with Ultimate ADOS and just making sure that these dealers have enough room in their service shops to actually provide the services that the OEs are asking them to provide. Gone are the days of, well, I shouldn't say gone are the days of maximizing space, but now it's more so, hey, instead of how many mechanical bays can you fit in here? Now it's, we're required to have 18 feet of space to perform these ADOS calibrations. How do we make this work and still make money in the mechanical base? So
Great,
that's the challenge that we're trying to help our dealer partners with as we speak.
great point, Eli. Paul, what trends are you seeing in terms of customer expectations, ownership patterns, and even retention strategies?
Well, I mean, it's clear that based on affordability, the ownership and life cycles are changing a little bit. You're looking at consumers keeping their cars 5 to 7 years instead of maybe 3 to 4 in the past. And that experience they have in service is going to be so important for the dealers to maintain that. Consumers are looking for a frictionless buying experience. And on the front end, much of this takes place digitally. More than half of the buying experience starts digitally. So the expectations for the consumer is transparency and an experience related to products, and then maintaining service appointments and an experience in service that they want to be pleasant and expeditious through their life cycle. And as owners keep their cars longer, the dealers that take better care of them in service will be the ones that get them in the showroom when it is time to get that new vehicle.
Paul, if I can follow up, how do these challenges intersect to impact overall dealership performance?
Well, I think more of the money is shifting to fixed operations as sales slows down a little bit in the front. So, as an F&I provider, we can't focus on being a product peddler. We need to show the dealers how our products sold today actually increase retention and profitability in the back and keep that consumer in their showroom or in their buildings and properties to maintain that consumer for life.
Great points.
And Eli, in thinking about what DSD really accomplishes, there's a big link between operations and customer loyalty. So how do you see service department efficiency and workflow affect customer satisfaction and repeat visits?
Yeah, and it's a very simple answer. When the customer is unhappy, they're not going to want to come back to said dealership. And usually that comes with long waits, especially for very routine procedures and services. If a customer has to wait an extended period of time, you can pretty much bet that you might have one more chance at getting that customer to come back. But at some point, you're gonna lose that customer, and they all add up, right? So that's where we're able to come in, look at, okay, what does your workflow look like right now? How's your shop set up? How are you handling quick service? Not necessarily from a fixed ops consulting standpoint, but more so, hey, we know you're getting ready to go through a remodel. We know you're getting ready to expand. We understand completely where bottlenecks are. Let us have a conversation with you, and let's see if we can eliminate some of those very simple bottlenecks that prevent customers from being happy.
And this is, Eli, you're spot on. I mean, these bottlenecks and inefficiencies with capacity, they have this trickle effect where you lose the opportunity to have customer retention.
Mm.
And Paul, Safeguard Products International, there's a big opportunity right now for customers and for dealerships, because customers are holding on to vehicles longer than they ever have historically. So where do you see, Paul, the protection products or variable ops offerings play the biggest role in retaining customers?
So there's so many offerings nowadays. I mean, you go back 20 years in the auto business and it was VSC and Gap, but as you increase offerings, what that does is it increases the RO counts into service, and that higher frequency of visits back to the dealerships are going to create that relationship with the consumers. So as dealers set up their menus properly and sell consumers products that not only protect their investment, give them a better ownership experience, that higher RO count and frequency to the dealership 100% puts that consumer in that family of customers that that dealer wants to build, as opposed to simply making some extra profit today in the variable ops part of the business. So we're so clearly tied to the fixed ops in the products we sell nowadays.
And Paul, this is really important because, in the customer conversation, oftentimes when a customer is thinking about the warranty or the policies that they purchased in the F&I department, they may not relate it back to the immediate
Mm.
servicing of the vehicle, and really those two teams, service and F&I, they're both sides of the same coin. So how can service and F&I coordinate to improve the overall customer experience?
I mean, I think it starts right at the time of sale. I think dealers can be smarter in tying pay plans to retention as opposed to simply on profit today, because that's how the dealer wins in the long run. As they do that, you absolutely bring your variable ops teams into the thought process of consumers coming back into the fixed ops departments. And that really is the only way you maintain the full circle of sale to service, and then experience brings them back to the same showroom for their next vehicle.
Makes a lot of sense, gentlemen. I want to talk to you a little bit about planning for long-term service success. And Eli, I want to ask you, when planning a new build or renovation, what are the most important factors to consider early to ensure that the service department supports this long-term operational need that the dealership is going to have?
Yeah, plan for expansion early. Just know that if you think your shop is big enough, it's probably not. We just ran through this with a ton of Hyundai and Kia dealers, a ton, which is great for those brands. But as we're getting through that cycle, that is now going to turn into, Honda, Toyota, Mazda, some of the luxury brands. So again, if you think it's big enough, it's probably not, would be one. And two would be space, space, and more space. Again, we touched on it early on, with calibrations being such a big part of these vehicles now, and
Right.
it's such a safety hazard. You've got to make sure, if the OE says, look, you need an 18-foot wide alignment bay, you better make sure you've got 18 feet and it's not going to run in to the number of mechanical bays that you had originally planned for your shop, which we're thankfully we've been brought into these projects early enough that we can catch that and we can say, look, have you thought about this or that? That will allow the dealer to be able to have that space and not make the building bigger, because obviously everything's crazy expensive these days. Let's not pretend it's not. So building square footage is going to add up. That's where we're able to come in, take a look, and say, look, you can keep your building the same size as your architect had originally planned. Tweak this, change that, and now you can make sure that it meets requirements. The other thing too, and this goes hand in hand with what Paul was saying, the service drive is a big weapon for dealers, a big weapon. And whether it's F&I or it's warranty issues, making sure that you have the right equipment in that drive,
Yes.
to make sure that tires and wheels are protected. That's a big piece. And when you've got those quick check systems in place to see where a vehicle is in alignment or if it does have tire damage early on, that can help protect dealers as well.
Paul, I love the perspective that you add by having Safeguard here today on this discussion. I think it's so important and necessary. Paul, how should variable ops and retention strategies be incorporated into these plans that we're talking about with Eli right from the start?
Well, I think that goes to speak to how they set up their menus to begin with and how they present their products. They can't look at the additional products such as a tire and wheel or a windshield coverage or a ding and dent coverage as if you can get an extra product, we'll throw those on. They're not tack-ons. They're products to focus on from the beginning, right from the sales desk forward, because sometimes consumers look at what used to be just the cost of maintaining a car and owning a car as perils of ownership, as opposed to something that they can plan for today. Finance departments can cover these, put it in your monthly budget, and not, give that feeling that there's always an extra cost of owning the car. So as variable ops focuses on proper coverage of all the options available, when the consumer goes back to service and has things covered, that frictionless experience is something that will continue to drive variable ops products. So it's a win-win for both sales and service. And if dealers don't tie those together, they are absolutely going to suffer in the future with a higher cost of acquiring their next consumers to buy their cars.
Great points. Eli, let me come back to you. How can early planning decisions prevent future capacity or efficiency issues? Some of the stories that you're both telling us, we can relate to it, right? Because, the dealer says, we had no idea. It's a good problem to have, right? That the product would be so popular, but how could that early planning impact this?
Yeah, I think they've got to be able to look around corners, right? They've got to be able to look at. I keep using Hyundai and Kia as an example, but
Sure.
I think smart operators will look at that and say, okay, this happened to two brands that might not have historically been that desirable, and now you could argue, maybe the most desirable car brands out there right now. I think there's a strong argument can be made for that. And so you've got to be able to look around corners, know that if it happened there, it could happen for any brand or any dealership, given the right market. And that's where it's highly important that they have a trusted team of advisors, whether it be someone like Dealer Solutions and Design, someone like Safeguard, the architect, a general contractor, someone saying, hey, look, we know the OE is saying that this Mercedes dealership has to have 15 bays based on the market. Maybe look at a potential add of 4 bays, whatever the case may be. They've got to be able to look around corners, because at the end of the day, dealers have cracked the code on, hey, look, yes, we can make money selling vehicles, but man, we're getting wealthy and able to invest back into the business based on F&I and fixed operations. And they've got to be able to see that.
Eli, our audience today, we have a lot of general managers, fixed ops directors, and leaders from very, very successful dealer groups. I'd love to get your perspective because you have the unique perspective of when you're designing these facilities and helping dealerships find the success in fixed operations. There's a lot of traits that these high performing dealerships possess. So, what common operational practices do you see differentiating the top performing service departments?
Yeah, great question, Sarah. They buy in. They buy into alignments and they buy into tires. That's first and foremost. They understand again how big of a weapon and how big of a tool the service drive is.
Yes.
They understand that they need the adequate equipment to make sure that they can push those cells up. They have the space, and more importantly, they understand that they have to have good technicians. You can sit there and have the best facility in the world with the state of the art equipment, and if you don't have good technicians, it doesn't matter. In the sports world, we used to say it's not necessarily about the X's and O's; it's about the Jims and Joes. And I feel like that cannot be more true for service departments. These guys and girls, the technicians that are powerhouses, they're worth their weight in gold, and they know that. So you have to have a facility set up for technician retention, which will lead to customer retention, which will lead to a successful dealership.
Great advice, Eli. And Paul, what retention strategies, including protection products, distinguish dealerships, these high performing groups that maintain strong customer loyalty?
I think we're seeing some focus on products that do drive retention. They're more traditionally protection products. Sometimes folks don't see a prepaid maintenance and oil change program as a protection product. They look at that as an expense, but that is something we see a lot of dealer groups focusing on, whether that be a giveaway or a very reasonably priced package to say you're going to get your 3 oil changes a year or 2 oil changes a year for X number of years. That is a way to guarantee visits back to the fixed operations department. And it's not just a prepaid maintenance. You can go past oil changes and incorporate wearable coverage, meaning pads and rotors and wiper blades, bulbs, hoses, things that traditionally just fell into the, hey, you own a car and this is your expense, so that live with it. But when you leave it to that, they can go anywhere and they don't have to come back to your service drive to do those, day-to-day common expenses of ownership. So dealers that are really buying into a prepaid maintenance program, whether that be wearables or just oil changes, are already taking the bull by the horns and getting ahead of the game. And I think that's probably a simple way to get started in guaranteeing retention.
Paul, that makes so much sense. And customers, they're communicating that they want to have these types of products that really protect them and make servicing their vehicle so much easier for them in terms of thinking about unforeseen costs. Everything has been going up year over year in terms of cost, and so this really helps protect some of that in the purchase process. What other operational efficiencies are you seeing, Paul, with variable ops performance, and how do these reinforce each other with operational efficiency in successful stores?
So I think it's even more important given that the affordability issues that exist today are keeping consumers from jumping back into the new car maybe as quickly as they did in the past. So those products are being used more often. And if you can teach variable ops how important it is to stress that cost of ownership on all levels and, remind them that, if you buy these protections today, as the world seems to explode in terms of it costs, parts prices, labor price increases, you're locking in today as a consumer what those expenses will be in the years to come. So you protect yourself as a consumer. So as variable ops learn to really sell that message and send that message to the consumers, they not only sell more products today, they drive those consumers back to the service drive. So it absolutely should be something that dealers are training their variable ops to understand what these products do for the health of the dealership. And then that goes back to my initial point of tying pay plans to retention as a piece, not simply profitability today.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Love it. Gentlemen, let me ask you for some immediate priorities for 2026. Here we are, early in the year, still in May. Okay, Eli, from your perspective at Dealer Solutions and Design, what small, no construction changes can the audience do to, let's say, boost efficiency or throughput immediately? Just some tips or best practices, anything you might want to share with the audience here today.
Yeah, so no construction involved.
Okay.
There are no plans for expansions or renovations. I think it's probably the most low hanging fruit, but make sure your technicians have the tools to be successful. If I'm hopeful that every service department in the country, they do their lift inspections, they do compressor servicing, because those things are like cars. Just making sure that the equipment's up to date, but give these technicians the right pieces of equipment to make their job easier, so that they're happier. They'll be able to move through those vehicles quicker, assuming there's not a bottleneck in the service drive, which that's a completely different conversation I'd rather not touch on right now. But just making sure the technicians have the tools required to do their job and to do it the most effective and efficient way possible.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And Paul, from your perspective at Safeguard Products, what quick wins in F&I or customer retention programs can deliver measurable impacts, would you say, in this quarter?
I mean, I think the quick wins would be making sure you have a menu review and you optimize the bundles that you're offering to make sure that there is more coverages for the dollars spent by the consumers. I think they appreciate that. They want to know they're going to have a good experience, not just today in sales, but also in service. And they want to know they're getting a good value. And variable ops needs to play a part in selling that and explaining that to them. And then also making sure service departments are more connected than they used to be. Digital engagement with apps and status reminders, making sure scheduling the appointments are easier, and making sure the fixed ops departments, we've made a big push at Safeguard to not just work on the variable departments, but to work with the service advisors so they can quickly see what coverages the consumers bought at time of sale. So when somebody comes in, they don't need the consumer to say, oh, I notice you do have a tire and wheel coverage, or I notice you do have a prepaid maintenance. So the consumer doesn't then have to re-explain to service. So as the dealers connect fixed ops and service to their partners, that consumer experience, they feel the value, they feel they got their money's worth with the products bought up front. And I think that's the way to quickly tie the two together and make this business less siloed.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, gentlemen, Eli and Paul, last question for today. We're going to make this a lightning round, Sarah. I'll come to each of you. Eli first, then Paul, in a minute or less, okay? Same question for both of you. First one, Eli, what conversations should leadership have now to align service operations and retention strategies for the year? Eli, you first, and then Paul to bring us home.
Yeah, just the theme of the day for me is space, space, space. Make sure that you have the adequate space, that you are compliant with what the OEs are asking. You're able to calibrate the way you're supposed to calibrate, and you're giving your technicians the ability to perform their job as seamless as possible.
I love it. Okay, Paul, over to you.
Okay, 60 seconds or less, lightning round. I think how the dealers that will tie their technology to their processes, to the human connection they make with their customers, will give the consumers the understanding that this life cycle is not simply a one and done experience. It is a relationship between the consumer, the products, and the dealership. And then as dealers get a little more evolved, I think they need to start tying their service advisors and their F&I departments into monthly meetings so they understand they all are one team, and the consumers will feel that.
Love it. Sarah, what a breath of fresh air to hear these gentlemen and some of the discussion today.
It's amazing to hear all of the insights that Safeguard and Dealer Solutions and Design are bringing to the industry, Ted, and lots of exciting things in the year ahead.
We're excited to have you both here. For more information, Eli, for our audience who want to learn more about Dealer Solutions and Design, we're seeing a lot of you now. Okay, you're out on social media and you're talking about the fixed stop space, and I mean that literally. It's so important. I know the website dsdteam.com. Eli, is that the best place for our audience to go to learn more about what Dealer Solutions and Design does?
It is, yeah, or LinkedIn. We have a very big LinkedIn presence. Meredith Eckert, our marketing and partnerships coordinator, does an incredible job. Go to Paul's LinkedIn or Safeguard's LinkedIn. We're able to get really creative. This partnership has allowed us to be unbelievably creative on variable and fixed with dealers with new builds and renovations, expansions, or even just if you're in brick and mortar and you don't have any plans to expand, reach out to Paul, reach out to someone on our team, reach out to me. I think dealers be really shocked at how creative we can get together.
And Paul, our audience knows who Safeguard Products is. I've heard that from a lot of folks. So you've got a great name in the industry. And the audience can also reach out to you, as Eli said, and at Safeguard. I think scrolling at the bottom here, in addition to dsdteam.com, we've got the Safe-Guard Products, safeguardproducts.com URL. Paul, is that the best way to learn more about what Safeguard is offering?
Yeah, so I think safeguardproducts.com, the website, will give the audience an understanding of what we do overall as a company and what products we offer. But I would also, to Eli's point and your point, reach out through social media, LinkedIn in particular. I'm always there to answer questions. I think that's where you're going to get a more personal experience. And one thing I noticed about that is when I started more activity on the social media sites, it was really to reach out to dealers, general managers. But surprisingly, I have just as many inquiries from friends, colleagues, and that extended network of professionals that reach out to me about protection products, about maybe a problem they had, or maybe an opportunity they might get to protect their next vehicle and ask some advice. So, yeah, for that personal experience, please reach out to me. I'm a believer in relationships. I'm never like a hard sell guy. I take my time. I get to know folks, and I'm really happy just to have the human connection and answer questions, whether or not it has any instant benefit or instant gratification for me today. I know in the long term, we all win when we work together, and that really speaks to why DSD and Safeguard partnered to begin with, to really tie the front and back together. And as dealers get a partner who serves the entire operation, it'll save them from the headaches of wondering who to call for what situation.
What a great combination, Safeguard Products and Dealer Solutions and Design. Want to thank today Eli Crawford and Paul Agosti for being with us on the Roundtable. Great message, gentlemen, and thank you for all you do for the industry and bringing us forward. And it's Eli, I can't wait to see where this is going, in another 6 months to a year. I mean, it's getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for everything. Yeah.
Thank you for having us, Ted, Sarah. You guys are great as always, and I look forward to future talks.
Everybody, Eli Crawford and Paul Agosti here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.